This is the story of a superstar who's certainly the greatest personality motorcycle racing has ever produced. I'm Murray Walker, and I know I'm right, because I've known him, followed his career and respected him all his life. I'm talking, of course, about the charismatic Barry Sheene. This is his superb home at Surfers Paradise in Australia, and with a lifestyle like Barry's, you have to wonder if he misses the racing that made him a world personality.
Well, I don't anymore, but it was pretty difficult in 1985 when I saw, you know, all the results, who was doing what, and that. If times got difficult with some projects I was working on or whatever, I used to think, oh, you know, if I was still racing, it wouldn't be as difficult as this. But then in '86, I got involved in a lot of different things and didn't think about the racing at all. I still used to read the magazines and see all my old friends. Now, when since I've been in Australia, I do the bike commentaries for Channel 9 and some of the Formula 1 interviews and the Australian Grand Prix. So I'm still heavily connected with the sport and enjoy watching it. And prior to the Grand Prix, I phone up and talk to whoever, Gardner Lawson or Doohan or whoever's doing what. And it's nice to still be involved because it's good to do something that you don't have to think about. There was much for thinking. Yeah, one of the lovely things about living over here is that having a young family now, I can spend so much time with them. Take my little girl to school in the mornings. If the weather's nice, which it nearly always is, I take her on the bike, and I can go and pick her up from school. I spend a lot of time with my family. There's no sort of typical day for me. So normally I get out of bed about 6:30 in the morning, go in the gym, go into the office and looks if there's any faxes from England or anywhere in Europe. If there is, I sort of sit down and answer those. Come out of the office at 10 o'clock or something, and by that time there's been a couple of phone calls and maybe I'll have to go to Sydney or Melbourne. Obviously, I miss a lot of things about England. I had a lot of good friends there, but we still stay in touch. You know, my phone bill's an arm and a leg because I'm forever phoning people up. As I said, I didn't leave England because I didn't like it. I love England, and I had tremendous support over there and that. The reason I came to Australia was for health reasons, and I had to think that, you know, having a young family, it's a great place to bring a family up.
Barry was born, of course, on the other side of the world on September the 11th, 1950, just off the Gray's Inn Road in London. And his parents, Frank and Iris, both worked at the Royal College of Surgeons. Frank Sheene and his brother Arthur were both motorcycle racers. Frank a circuit man as well as a tuner, while Arthur raced speedway for Coventry. So it's not surprising to find that the Sheene family album shows 6-year-old Barry astride a racing machine. Barry's sister, Margaret, grew up to marry road racer Paul Smart. As a child, Barry suffered breathing difficulties until an interest in things mechanical intervened. Frank Sheene.
The asthma left him when he had, we found out, when he had his mind more occupied with mechanical things. By that time he had a push bike, and I'd made a little motorbike for him. I bought an old Ducati, small 2-stroke bike, and I put a little 4-stroke engine into it, and he used to ride this around the back of the Royal College of Surgeons. It was a huge car park. He used to ride around there, and I was never off that thing.
As I've said, it's been my very real pleasure to have known Barry since before he even started racing, so it was great to reminisce with him.
Dad was so wrapped up in motorbike racing. It was something he got interested in, not because of his family, he just liked motorbikes, and his whole life revolved around the motorcycle thing. When I was sort of born, I think when I was lying in the maternity unit, you know, he said, "Daddy, buy you a nice big Manx Norton and you can go and ride in the Isle of Man." And he just brought me up with motorbikes. He raced until 55, and until 1955, and then Mum made him give it up, and he was always involved in the racing, sponsorship-wise and that.
Now, you used to rush about as Frank's gopher to some extent.
Oh yeah,
mechanic.
completely.
Now, did you feel, I want to be like Dad, I want to race? How did it develop?
No, I didn't. You know, that was the thing. I was very interested in the mechanical side of it. You know, I learned to do virtually anything with engines and rebuild them and all that kind of stuff. But I really didn't have any burning ambition to race.
No, and you've actually achieved what you have achieved from a fairly humble start. I mean, you failed your 11 plus. You started off your commercial career as a dispatch rider for an advertising agency, I remember. Now look what you've done against that background. World champion twice, you speak 4 languages, you fly a helicopter, you're a very wealthy man, you've been awarded the MBE, you've won the Seagrave Trophy twice, you're a top man in Australia. How do you explain that success? How do you see yourself?
I really, you know, the whole thing was I didn't really have, everybody says you have to have a goal in life. And my main thing in life was, from the time when I was a kid, was to be happy. You know, it's a pretty obvious thing. But I just wanted to be happy, and I did everything that, I didn't follow any special career or anything. I wanted to try lots of different things, and I'd get different jobs, and it'd be really interesting, I'd be happy, and then I'd lose interest in that and get involved in something else. And I think that I hated school so much, and I was so bad at school, and I mean bad in every possible way you can think of.
Doesn't seem to have done you any harm.
No, you know, I wasn't dim. I was just a non-conformist, really. I couldn't really see the sense of it all. You know, once you could read and write and add up, and I was very good at mathematics. I was good at English, believe it or not. And I thought, well, that's it. There's nothing else worth staying for.
So when did the racing thing begin? I mean, I know you first rode a motorbike when you were about 5 years old, but at some time in your life, you must have either fallen into racing or deliberately planned to go racing. When and how did it first happen?
Well, it was via Dad. Dad was sponsoring different people, and he had a couple of new bikes, and the guys that used to ride his bikes, they were pretty good riders, but they had no mechanical sort of aptitude, no feel for engines or anything. And he had a couple of new bikes, and he had no one to run them in, you know, and get them ready to race. So he said, "Oh, you know, bloody blokes doing this and doing that." He said, "Would you do me a favour? Would you go down to Brands Hatch and run these things in?" So I said, "Yeah, sure." I go, "Yeah, why not?" So I borrowed a set of leathers off of somebody. And I went down, and every time a rider ran his bikes in, they'd seize them up or fall off them or something. I came back at the end of the day, and they were all running, and he said, "Well, you know, what's happened?" And so I said, "Nothing, you know, it's perfect." You know, and I had the cylinders off and checked it all when I was down. And somebody phoned Dad from Brown. I think it might have been Ken Phillips, who, you know.
Yes.
Phoned Dad and said, "Look, Barry was flying today, absolutely flying." And I didn't even think about it. You know, I went down there, I was more interested in what I was doing, trying to get mechanically out of the bikes. And Dad said, "Well, we'll go down to Brands again next Wednesday and, you know, run the bike." I said, "Well, they're all done, they're running, you know." So he said, "Oh, come on, I want to come down and see you having a ride." "All right, okay." So I went down there, had a ride round, and I went pretty quickly, and Dad said, "Do you want to ride in a race?" I said, "Well, yeah," I never really thought about it. And I really hadn't. You know, when I was running the bikes in, I didn't think, "Well, I'd love to race one of these." It didn't even cross my mind. And then the next thing I knew, I was sitting on the start line down at Brands Hatch for a race.
Barry's first race was in March '68, when he fell off Frank's 125, but later that day he finished third on the 250. A week later, he won twice. Success followed quickly. The race bug had truly bitten.
And it got to a stage where I was racing so much that I was working all the week, and by the time the weekend came, I was knackered, absolutely physically and mentally knackered. And I thought, well, I just can't do this. You know, I was interested in racing. I was becoming good at racing. So I thought, well, what I'll do, I'll give up work for 3 months and see if I can make ends meet.
By this time, Sheene had clinched his first title, the 1970 British 125 Championship, and the following year he scored his first Grand Prix win, the 125 in Belgium. Indeed, he was runner-up in the 1971 125cc World Championship. But he was quickly to move up to the premier 500cc class. This historic footage from the 1972 Austrian Grand Prix at the Salzburg Ring shows Barry's distinctive style in his white leathers on bike number 5. His lucky number 7 was still to be adopted, but already his crash helmet bore the Donald Duck symbol, which was to be his trademark. But more than anything, his impressive riding on what was little more than a Bitzer Suzuki marked him out as the hottest new property on the Grand Prix scene. On top of that, his infectious personality made him a popular man in the paddocks in the early 70s. Father Frank came along too to wield the spanners. Meanwhile, the astute Barry had learned that the media needed a personality, and his charm and humour made him a natural for the cameras. He was a bit of a prankster too. Suzuki's Rex White remembers a toilet block demolition.
Barry, I think, thought as a farewell gesture and something that really needed doing, decided to take a jerry can full of petrol and pour it all over the toilets.
Just put a match to it, and this thing just exploded. It blew the roof 40 foot in the air and it landed in a lake. And it was well worth doing, because the next year they had hot showers, nice toilets.
Rebuilt it all.
I mean, it didn't really matter for us. It was bad enough for us, but there was all little kids in the paddock and all that kind of stuff, and it's disgusting.
There's a bit of a hue and cry over it all because they're very susceptible to forest fires up there.
It's a federal offence,
Yeah,
punishable by 30 years in jail.
Yeah, they were really after the person seriously who caused the explosion or whatever, but no one really spoke about it too much.
They could have seen all the front of my one and only suit I ever possessed was singed. My eyebrows had got it.
Yeah.
In 1974, Barry became a works rider for Suzuki, helping to develop their new 4-cylinder 500cc Grand Prix machine.
Sheene flies ahead, but the new Suzuki is soon overtaken by Reed with Lansavori third. Phil Reed roars home to win on the MV. Second place makes it a bright day for Barry Sheene on his Grand Prix debut for Suzuki.
Now, at the age of 24, Barry Sheene is one of the world's top motorcycle road racers. #1 for the Suzuki factory team.
Motorcycle racing, it's changed my life. It's a part of my life. It took me from sort of £18 a week truck driver to probably a £2,000 a week motorcycle racer.
Here comes Gene Romero to win the Daytona 200. The checkered flag flies. Gene Romero has just won the Daytona 200, the world's greatest motorcycle race. He'll be pulling into victory lane in about 1 minute from Daytona International Speedway. This is the Motor Racing Network.
There he is, ladies and gentlemen, Gene Romero, who is the winner of the Daytona 200. How about a big round of applause for him? Gene Romero, ladies and gentlemen.
The bike was going very well. There was a tyre come application problem, wasn't it? The tyre, the Dunlop people didn't, or they hadn't imagined how much the tyre grew in diameter. Actual tyre was growing about 12 millimetre in diameter, and it was rubbing on the inside of the swing arm, wasn't it, and depositing a load of rubber on it, and of course then the tyre just destroyed itself through getting too hot.
By the mid-70s, Sheene was a media superstar. His first 500cc victory came just 4 months after that horrendous Daytona crash. His on-track successes had already included the Formula 750 world title and twice Motorcycle News Superbike champion, Britain's biggest series. The Thames documentary was to change his life in more ways than one. A front-cover Vogue model had watched it, and it had given her an idea.
I saw Barry on the television on a documentary, and I thought the racing leathers would look great for a picture. So I forgot all about it. And then I happened to see him outside a nightclub in London. And he was on crutches, looking very sorry for himself. And I thought, that's that guy I saw on the television. And I spoke to my agent the next day, and she said, well, we've got his phone number because we handle him as well. So she gave me the phone number, and I called him. And, of course, he wasn't too interested in me coming around to borrow his leathers. He just actually was very interested.
Stephanie had also starred in this all-time classic Old Spice TV commercial.
The freshest feeling in the world